Hi there. This is another episode of Marketingaholic podcast focusing on marketing. My name is Ilir Pruthi, and my guest today is Riccitelli Halimi.
Hi, Ilir. Thank you for having me on Marketingaholic.
Thank you very much for coming. So, Albert, you're into fashion.
I am into fashion, so I am a store director for one of like an Italian fashion brand in London. So we have a flagship store on Sloane Street, and I look after the store, but not only the store, I also like my team, which is a team of 40. And I am involved in quite a lot of aspects. I'm involved more in the business of fashion than in the designing part of things, but obviously the designing plays a very big part.
All right, but is it a secret, this Italian fashion brand?
Well, no, it isn't a secret. It's actually, I work for Gucci.
Okay.
So working for Gucci, I've been working there for 3.5 years. I took a bit of a break to go and work for another brand very quickly, but now I'm going back to them. So, and I think it's amazing, that's the world of fashion. You come, you go, you see, things happen. It's
Always learning, right?
It's always learning. It's always part of
Do you
learning.
mind telling us more about how you started out in fashion and what it takes to get in and stay on?
So actually, I got into fashion all by accident. I studied architecture to become an architect, which my parents would have been very, very happy had I stuck to it. But so whilst I was studying architecture, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I needed a job. It was something that my parents were like, "Okay, you need to go get yourself a job now." And when I got a job, and I was a sales associate for Giorgio Armani. And already that was like a very big thing for me, because obviously my mother being Italian, you grow up with these big Italian brands and the prestige of them, and the fact that my very first job was in a Giorgio Armani store at the age of 18, that was very big for me. It was very big, and obviously that went hand in hand with my architecture. And obviously it's design focused, but yet you're not designing, but you just sort of meet great people. In architecture, you have to go meet great people, great clients in order to design for them. It sort of worked hand in hand.
So, but I mean, the change from architecture going into fashion must have been a big transition. Did you have any support from your family and friends?
So I think it was a very what I did. I sort of finished the architecture degree. I went and worked for a firm for like a year and a half. And I think in that year and a half, I just really realized personally, like where I actually sort of saw myself in 5 years' time. From there, did I see myself as being a partner within that architectural firm? Not really, because it's very solitary when you're an architect. So you have your idea, then you have to communicate it to everyone else. There's a lot of time that you spend behind a computer compared to sort of when you're like in amongst people. And being more of a sociable person, I needed to be in the middle of everything, being involved in so many different things. My family probably didn't. They probably would have wished I just carried on being an architect. But I think when they saw the change in my character, they realized that actually probably the fashion was more what I would thrive in. Okay. So they were very supportive after. I think it was very difficult at the beginning, because they're like, "Oh my God, you just did like a degree in architecture.
And now you're moving.
And now you're moving into something very different, and you don't even want to do any of the design stuff after being so creative." So for me, that was like a very big stepping stone for me, but also a very big stepping stone for my family to sort of recalibrate what their expectations were of me.
So, I mean, for you, it might have been one way to get in was through just like a side gig, basically.
Yeah, it was a side gig which sort of allowed me to sort of start in at the bottom.
Right. What would you say it takes to break into and grow another way other than the way you did it?
I think to break in, I think you just have to go in with a position that you're interested into. Like, there's like buying, designing, there's marketing in fashion. There is so many things that you can sort of go get into it. Obviously, you're going to start at the bottom. You're going to be the person who's going to be making the coffees for the first 3 weeks. Right. You're going to be the person who's going to be running around, taking samples to the different magazines. But those are very good stepping stones into getting into keeping into fashion. Because I think, fashion is such a big industry. There are so many different categories within that. There is so much in terms of like how to get in. And the only way you can really sort of last the period in whatever and succeed to getting to where you want to go is by starting at the bottom.
Right.
Starting, even if after you've done like a degree in fashion design or whatever, you go at the bottom, you're the person who's designing the small accessories. You're not designing the big pieces.
And once you achieve some sort of respectable, quote unquote, level, how does work-life balance look like?
I think through hard work, nothing comes. I think we live in like at the moment we live through a period where you think that everything just happens, for the sake of happening. It doesn't. I mean, I've had to work very hard to earn the respect, but also the problem solving aspects of things. Yes, it is fashion. It is very beautiful, very whimsical, is everything, but it's still a business.
Right.
And out of that business, so many things sort of come out of it, and the way that you sort of keep at it, and your way you get respect for it is by actually proving yourself. Yes, you can make a mistake, but it's how you learn from it. Does that mistake doesn't mean it's the end of it. Do you take a wrong decision? Most people take wrong decisions, and you find that sometimes taking the wrong decision is the right decision.
Right.
Especially
after the fact.
Yeah. So, and then you're like, actually, do you know what? That's actually worked in my way. And then when you take a decision, it's the wrong decision. Whether like you bought too much of something, or you design something that probably has. Look, some of the brands that I've worked for, they've made bad decision when they've designed something. They did not sort of like research maybe the brand or what they designed in depth.
Mm-hmm.
And it might hit some, stereotypes. It might hit some things. And obviously that's where you get a lot of uprise about it. Like, how could you not think of this? This group of people like went through so much trouble like in the past, and you're just recreating this. And that's a bad mistake, but out of those mistakes is how you learn from it. The companies I worked for, big brands, obviously international brands, they also have the funds that they can actually go out and do that research.
Yes. Prior to getting started, right?
To get started.
A lot of people just think, especially about high fashion, that it's just something that you have money and then you want to show off that you have the latest or the most expensive item. How would you say it affects society, fashion? In general?
Look, I think on a day-to-day basis, fashion is very crucial for society. I think I say that as like, I'm not the Anna Wintour of the world, but it's important because, when you get up in the morning, you make a conscious decision on how you want to feel and how you want to look today. You have days when you want to dress up a little bit more. You have days when you want to be very casual. And in that white t-shirt, it's a white t-shirt, but that white t-shirt had to be designed by somebody. Now then, the luxury aspect comes into the quality, of the t-shirt that you want to wear. Okay. You want a t-shirt that breathes, you want a t-shirt that so on. But what you're forgetting is fashion is, in a recent study, there are literally over 300 million people involved within the luxury fashion industry.
Wow.
And this is everything from the person who plants the cotton, has the sheep for the wool, has the cashmere goats, and you build that up. There is that from the person who makes the fabric, the person who designs it, the person who makes it, the person who has to market it, the photo shoot, the fashion shows, down to the person who has to take you to the fashion show, the taxi guy, the driver. Mm. It involves so many people on so many levels that nothing can step in and actually sort of take it to the next level. So I think, we're all touched by fashion in very different ways. For some people, it is more the design aspect of it, the way you want to look at it. And then for some people, it is. You work very hard. You want to buy something that says, actually, do you know what? I have worked very hard. I am going to go buy that suit, that Giorgio Armani suit that I want. Or I want to go to Zegna and buy myself, a cashmere something, because I've worked very hard to do so.
I deserve it, right?
I deserve it. And I think, everyone deserves to treat themselves occasionally.
All right. So, just a question maybe out of the left field here. So we're in Kosovo. So people a lot of times associate fashion with girly. So
Fustana.
Right, right. So they're talking about dresses.
Dresses,
they're not even,
weddings.
Exactly. They're not even thinking about how a man might dress up. So does fashion have a favorite gender? Does it favor one gender more than the other, or vice versa?
I think if you had asked me this question maybe 5 years ago, I would have said yes, maybe like the female clientele, obviously dresses. I know from a business perspective, dresses and gowns make 25% of like what I make, what we make in a year. So, that's very, very big for us, 25 to 30%, and you're looking at £30 million business, you're looking, 25% of that, that's just dresses.
So then it makes sense that most of the designs are
They are more
targeting.
they are more targeted to like that female clientele. But now what we started to see, like with such brands such as Gucci, they're doing capsule collections which are genderless.
Okay.
They're very fluid.
Wow.
So now what you're finding is that men will buy certain shirts and pieces from like a women's collection. Women will buy certain jackets and things, from the men's collection. And the way they co-mix it all together, it sort of creates a new way of dressing.
Wow.
And generally fashion has always been more for like the female client. But now what we're starting to see is that development. And maybe here in Kosovo you won't see that
Anytime soon.
Anytime soon. I don't think you're going to see. But I have seen, certain aspects of it, even walking around Pristina, especially with the younger generations, they are more open to certain styles of, dressing, the colors that they're wearing, even the shapes, it's oversized, taking it in, it's great in that sense that we're seeing that. Are we there at a point where, there's going to be like stores that just sell like a genderless collection? Not really. But,
No.
probably in the future.
What are some changes you noticed fashion have had on people, like on people's personalities? Have you ever seen, for example, a client comes and throughout the years, and you notice that something has changed about them?
I think, I'm in a very fortunate position, and I think even here probably you're going to see a lot of like in the next couple of years, especially with Kosovo developing and becoming more of a global player. Even though it's a small country, it's becoming a bit of a global player. I think when you have like people like Dua Lipa, Rita Ora, and you're going to find that, they actually have catapulted the small country of 1.8 million to the world, you're going to find that it will have that effect. You're going to find people that are going to strive to sort of have great, look good, feel confident. And the only way they're going to do that is by sort of buying like nice clothes. Clothing that represent them more than anything. You want that sort of to go forward and represent. So I think, what you have to think, fashion has an effect on people. Has an effect because it builds confidence. I know so many of our clients, going back to a previous conversation we've had, when somebody has literally saved up to come in and buy the first suit or to buy the first belt or the first pair of jeans, in that life, from the moment they've come in, they've started a journey with a brand.
Right.
And this is where, also like the marketing and that whole machine comes into place. It's keeping that journey alive.
Let's say Gucci is your first high-end item that you bought. Do they venture out and try out these other brands? How's brand loyalty amongst?
Brand loyalty has changed. Like I was very lucky. I worked for like a matchesfashion.com, which is an online company. And obviously it was a multi-brand. And it was amazing to see the kind, once, let's say like a client bought Gucci, to see what other brands they would buy in terms of a triangle.
Right.
So, a client who would buy Gucci might buy LV. And then if they buy LV, they might buy maybe like a Zegna or a Balenciaga. And it's very interesting to sort of see that, because then a client who would buy a Giorgio Armani will not necessarily buy the more fashion brands. Will go for like a Zegna, and maybe they might go to a Valentino, let's say.
All right, so they chase similarities between brands, though, right?
They tend
to follow that.
They tend to follow that, but then do they actually are they brand loyal? Yes. I think the person who's actually saved up and has bought that the very first pair of like Gucci jeans or that Gucci bag, let's say, they will come back and buy Gucci more regularly.
Right.
Throughout the whole lifespan. And their ability to actually buy it, then go to other brands. And this is actually quite wild, because when I sort of see like how clients' wardrobes have developed in the last 4 years, when I started off, and it's amazing how it actually like the other brands become less and less and less. But this is only because as a brand, Gucci and even more recently like Versace that I worked for, they try to entice you. They want you to bring, they want to bring you into the story of the brand, to make you part of the community of the brand. And when you're part of the community, you sort of have some sort of loyalty towards that community.
You feel connected, right?
You feel connected, like you have it with your family. But now we were like the whimsical family of like life. When everything real life doesn't work very well, you just come into us and we'll give you like an alternative to that life where you can actually explore different things.
All right. So I'd like to jump into comparing and contrasting European countries and Kosovo. What do you think about that? How do we compare it with, let's say, Germany or the UK? Do people appreciate fashion the same way?
Yes and no. I think in Kosovo at the moment, fashion is more of a status.
Okay.
It's a status. Like obviously, I think Kosovo is also very affected by people coming. Obviously the Kosovan population lives in Kosovo. They'll have a way of going through a lot. Getting dressed and doing their things. As people who come out from the diaspora who come into Kosovo for the summer breaks or for visiting, they influence that a lot. And how do they influence it? They influence it in the way that fashion in Kosovo is seen as a way of I have achieved something.
Right.
I have worked hard towards something and I have achieved it.
As opposed
As in
to
Europe, you sort of like going back to my example, I grew up in an Italian family, my mother being Italian, you're raised with this is how you're supposed to, look on this day, this is how you look on a Sunday, this is how you dress up, this is the expectation.
Right.
And in Kosovo, I think we never had that expectation because obviously, with everything that's happened, the last thing you wanted to do to have that expectation. But now because we're getting to that point where we're maturing, we're becoming like more cultured in a way. Also, like we have time to sort of venture into fashion, which brand do I like, which brand I don't like. Now fashion has become a lot more important for us because it also says like, look, I worked very hard, I have achieved this, I have done this, I can afford to buy this. But it's also down to the confidence that's created within the population.
Yes.
Maybe before everything had to be very buttoned up, long sleeved, very sturdy. Now it's more fluid. It's a lot more gentle. You can actually reveal a little bit of skin. You can actually be a lot more open to what you can wear, patterns. Before, I know there used to be these things, oh, wow, you're wearing flowers. No, you shouldn't wear flowers. Just go wear a blue shirt. Yeah, but a blue shirt, this is like what the workers used to wear. It was a very confined way of seeing things.
Yes.
Now we're opening up. Now it's all about the flowers, the patterns. Probably the louder, the better. But what I see is more than anything that we appreciate fashion more here in Kosovo now. Because what I've noticed is like my father has also like a secondhand vintage shop.
Okay.
And I see loads of these opening up here in Kosovo at the moment. And it's amazing to see how people will go and pick that particular jacket and will mix it up with a pair of like new jeans they've bought and how they style it together. And for me, that is, that's an appreciation of fashion, but it's also an appreciation of self-expression more than anything.
Yeah. So if someone from Kosovo were to peep into the fashion world overseas, what do you think would be a shocking realization for them?
I think, I sort of say, it's funny enough, when I come here, I sometimes like, then look back, I'm like, oh my God, I think would be the sense of liberty that you have. There is no wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in Kosovo, something either has to be black or white, yes or no,
Right
or wrong.
Yeah.
It has to fall into one of them, otherwise it's complicated. It raises too many questions. But those questions are the questions that actually allow you to develop certain things, allow you to develop great marketing strategies, allow you to develop great designs, allow you to develop great connection with a certain community. If you don't have those questions, how are you supposed to develop culturally? You can't.
Right.
You're pretty much stuck. So, going back to how important is fashion to like society, and and especially it's very, very important, even though we don't think of it as very important. It's the manifestation of how you want to represent yourself as a culture.
Wow.
More than anything. And it sounds very like, oh my God, like how can this be so important? But it actually is, because it involves everyone on a daily basis.
I would see it as also an indicator of a society and how free they are to express themselves.
Okay. And for me, this is really good, because obviously when you've been oppressed for such a long time, and then you have this 23 years to develop your own language in terms of the way you want to dress, the way you want to. Look, I'm a very big fan of also like traditional Kosovan attire. The plissé, some of the other, the shirts and everything. But when you look at some of the shirting and things, this is shirting that actually used in like current fashion, like spring summer collection. You'll always find an oversized shirt, beautifully cuffed, and the way it's brought in by a beautiful jacket or something. The high waisted pant. And, with the stripes, there was a few seasons ago, I think everyone had stripes on everything. But when you look at our traditional Kosovan Albanian costume dressing, there are so many aspects of that you can sort of take into modern fashion. And sort of that would be the language of Kosovo in terms of fashion.
It could be its unique voice.
It could be the way Morocco and the Middle East have the kaftans. You'll have the great straw hats of like South America. The great Hawaiian shirts of Hawaii. And I think there is definitely like something there is a vacuum there that needs to be filled.
And you think Kosovo has the...
I think Kosovo is getting to the point where it could fill that vacuum. I think, when I sort of see like the arts, especially now like in the last couple of days that I've been out and about in Pristina and different other cities of Kosovo, I've seen sort of the art, I've seen how people like react to it. It's not closed, it's very open. Okay. And going back to the initial question, how would somebody, when they come outside of Kosovo, how they would see the fashion industry? I think they would see it as a breath of fresh air. Okay. A breath of fresh air, because it's a breath of fresh air that allows you to really be curious without any prejudice. You want to wear pink? You wear pink. You see what happens. Exactly. If you're a guy, big moustache like me, I wear pink. But, it's one of those things. I wear pink, I wear flowers, I wear patterns. I go around something like all the way unbuttoned. And sometimes my parents always have to remind me, like, listen, even my friend, you might want to do a button up here. You're not like in Marbella, so come on, know. So it is that. It's just that openness to sort of being open to new ideas.
All right. How does demand for high fashion differ? Is there more demand overseas than here, as well as demand for fashion designers?
I think in Kosovo, luxury fashion, let's say, is a novelty. It's a novelty. You buy something actually to go to a wedding. You buy for something very special. As outside of Kosovo, what you find is it becomes just a thing. You just buy a jacket. You need a jacket. You just go buy a good made quality jacket.
Okay.
And that's it. That's how you sort of see it. But then you can only buy a good quality, designed made jacket if it's actually designed nicely.
Right.
It's designed nicely. But the way it's designed, that design has to be influenced by something or someone. That something or someone requires a designer. Somebody has to be the creative head of something. They have to have a vision. Now, art design is crucial, very crucial. Do I also think, this is an additional bit to the question, do I think that Kosovo can provide designers for the future? Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
Because I think when you have designers that are actually, and this is what I've seen like in the last couple of years, when you have designers who develop designs from nothing, you have to think Kosovo 10 years ago did not have what Kosovo has now.
Right.
And people still manage to design, produce, and sell. Now they've got so much more. Now, the more you have something, the easier it gets. But you have to go back to those, you have to have that basic understanding of how to design something from nothing. And I think this is why it's so, so important, do fashion designers need to exist? Yes, they have to exist. Does Kosovo have a stepping board to producing like great designers? Oh my God, it does. Right. And I think I'm so positive about it because I'm actually very excited by the things that I see day in, day out.
That's great. Just wanted to throw in a side question here. So do people here, do they know how to appreciate a well-designed, well-made item? As opposed to, people who live in the UK.
So I'm going to, the way I'm going to answer like for people who live here. And I've got loads of family who live here. I think yes. Because they realize, the stitching is immaculate. They realize the quality, and something there's a very big misconception with buying luxury. Buying luxury doesn't mean because you spent £1,000 or something or €1,000, you can wear it day in, day out, wear it 10 times, wash it, iron it. No, it's actually the opposite. When you buy something of luxury, it means that you have to look after it a lot more. You can wear it, but you cannot sometimes overwear it.
Right.
So I think, and yes, there is that understanding of it because, you buy something of luxury and you'll keep it for those special occasions or you'll keep it for when you really want to make a statement. Okay. So for me, it is, yes, there is that understanding that there is a quality, there is a craftsmanship that's gone in. And it's something that probably before there wasn't an understanding because a shirt was just a shirt.
Right.
Or like a dress was just a dress. You just put a dress on, a pair of sandals, and you just left. You went and did your business. As now there is a lot more understanding. It's like, okay, maybe I cannot wear this silk dress, to death, because at some point the silk is just going to give, even though it's the strongest fiber, it's still going to give, it's going to discolor, it's going to ruin. So there is that understanding, and it's great to sort of see that, because then you sort of see your investment. I always say, look, clothing is probably not the biggest investment you should be investing your stuff in, but it's an investment that allows you to express yourself. And it is nothing better than working hard and going out to buy something, that actually expresses you. But then you also have to know how to look after it. And it's something, some things are dry clean only. So if you put them in the washing machine, that, let's say that €1,000, goodbye.
Right.
So it's good. I think it's in a good place. People do understand that, but then people also understand that there are more important things than...
The life cycle of a high-end product. How does the process go from, you must be familiar with this. So how does it go from a concept to a final sale?
It's great the way it works. I mean, it all starts with a story. It starts with a story, with an inspiration. Is it going to be a sunset? Is it going to be something historic? Is it going to be something? And then from that initial idea, you start building a story around that. That story is going to tell you how you want, how you want someone to feel when they wear it. And then you start designing around that. And that's very beautiful, because then depending on what it is it going to be men's wear, women's wear, is it going to be a mix? Is it going to be a bag? Is it going to be a dress? You start designing and you take aspects of that story, you take aspects of how you want that person to feel, and you sort of take them and you start designing. And then this is where you brainstorm. After you brainstorm, you have your initial designs. Then you speak to somebody from the atelier who will come in and start doing, some pattern cuts for you to get the shapes that you want and so on. And it's even a story. It's a design process. It's a design process, but then that design process and that story feed into everything. Because without having that initial story, even you can't get your marketing right.
Right.
Because you have to understand, the sort of marketing, how you're going to target this product, to your clients.
Yeah.
And
so
through that feel.
This would be another thing to consider. So at what point in the process do designers or design houses think about who they're going to sell this to? Is it part of the story time, the initial phase of planning, or is it at marketing?
No, it probably starts off as the design process. It's during the design process. Obviously, there are going to be certain designs that are going to be more viable for, a certain market, and then a certain demographic also. And then, and then you can sort of use marketing to sort of channel that to the different markets that you want to look at. And obviously, sometimes the story might change. But generally, it's sort of the design process where you start designing for a certain client in mind. Because then also you have to think the way design is designed, they're designed for a lifestyle.
Right.
They're designed for the businesswoman, the businessman, the man of the world who's always traveling on a boat. They're designed for the frequent traveler, who needs to have pieces that are very convenient. Maybe it's like a jacket that's a reversible jacket. They go during the day, they're doing stuff in the evening, they want to reverse it, and they've got another look. So it just, from the design point, then that sort of feeds into the marketing. But then, at the point where we are now with fashion, it's very reactive. A trend today, what happens this week might be very different to the trend of next week and then the following couple of weeks. So marketing will probably take a product that was probably marketed to a certain demographic, and they'll just retell that story in a very different way and make it
You mentioned weeks, but how long does it take, the whole life cycle? How long does it take from planning or design?
Think of it this way, whatever collection you see now, this was designed a year ago.
Oh.
So it's a whole year process.
Okay.
And then it's not you start one, you once one starts, the other one ends. You start one, halfway through this one, you're already starting another one. By the time this ends, you're ready. So it's it's an ongoing. So constantly, this is why big brands have big teams which can actually sort of bring so much more of this in. And then obviously during those changes, from the start process of a particular collection or a particular design for something, a particular product, so many things could happen. Think of recently COVID.
Right.
That halted everyone. Everyone just stopped buying everything because they're well, where am I going to go? I'm going to go nowhere.
Exactly.
So then everyone just sort of stopped production. They started recalibrated everything. And then when they were back into production and reproducing things from those selection, so many lines that probably were like more for cocktails, going out, partying, they were dropped because people weren't, you couldn't mix, you couldn't do anything. And everything became comfort wear because everyone was at home, with the family, going out for walks, leisure stuff. But it was like the luxe end of leisure stuff.
Has it ever happened that, a line would be designed and then it would fail?
Yes.
Okay.
It happens.
How often does it? Outside of COVID, obviously.
Yeah, outside of COVID, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. This is why collections are quite big, because you're going to have different themes within different collections.
You want to diversify, right?
Yeah, and you want to diversify. You're going to have like your people are going to come in like halfway through the summer and they already want the winter coats, let's say. But then you're going to find yourself that there are going to be certain lines or certain themes within that collection that just don't work.
Right.
And that's something that, it happens to everyone because you want to give as much as possible, to your clients. You want them you want them to be as much part of the, the brand, the story. So you design for everyone's taste in a way. Sometimes when you do that, you tend to dilute the message.
Right.
And when you dilute the message, this is when sometimes, products start failing. Like there's been situations, brands that I worked for, with maybe like a whole theme hasn't sold because it wasn't the right time to have that theme. Right. So we've removed it. And then we reintroduced it maybe a couple of weeks later back into the stores. Well, then it did really, really well because it was the mood, clients were looking for that.
Okay.
So, it does happen, but sometimes there are even situations where the product just doesn't work because it doesn't connect with with the clients, with the theme of what's happening in the world at the time. And then you just have to sort of write them off in a way. But it happens.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So to tie it back into marketing, what kind of marketing exists in the fashion industry? So at what levels during the whole process do you see marketing?
Well, marketing is very important for the fashion industry. I think because it's fashion, art, music, movies, it's one big boat. But I think, fashion tends to use a lot more of shock marketing. Okay. Shock creates a hype. Once you have the hype, everyone wants the piece of the, of the week. Or, they've seen something in an editorial, everyone wants that. And then it's just about sort of keeping that shock going and how you sort of keep that story going. How do I keep you interested? And the only way you can do that is by constantly offering you something new. It does sometimes get to the point where brands are like, oh my God, what else could I be doing to sort of do it? And they have to sort of start looking at tying into like your human instincts. And to me, how do I make you like the human, the humanity of the brand? How do I make you really, feel the brand? And this is by, I'll give you a great example. Like Gucci did a collaboration with Adidas. I was very lucky to go to the fashion show. It was very beautiful and everything. That connects with a certain, with a new type of clients for the brand. But then this is also a client that also wants something like a sleek, luxury, but yet very casual. Okay. But then, great. So now I've got this client. But now how do I keep this client engaged now? And you have to literally go on to the next thing. And within the brands that, Gucci, Versace, Moncler, Matches Fashion, Giorgio Armani, it's all about creating these moments. And these moments generally are like through shock marketing. You have to create a bit of a hype and then they all come in and then and this is where you just entice them. Another way of doing it is by influencers. As I said previously, as a brand, generally big brands, they'll have like a general idea of what they want, of the marketing campaign they want to sort of like create and is the feel of the brand. But then you sort of have to like tweak it when it comes to different regions. Now, that China is going to be very different to the Middle East. The Middle East is going to be very different to like North America. North America is going to be a tiny little bit different to South America. And then all of that's going to be very different into Europe.
Right.
So, and then you have to tweak it. And the way like most brands tend to do it is go through like social media, your Instagrams, your Facebooks, your TikTok. I mean, TikTok is like the thing now. Everyone just wants a piece of it. And by doing so, they have to sort of tap into the local influencers.
Local, regional, as well as international.
Global, regional, but it's generally, and but even down to cities. We've had like influencers like London based and they influence a London crowd. Right. So like if you have a store in London, You're not gonna, you want to influence everybody, but in order for you to get that return, that that reactiveness, from your consumer, you actually want to do something very local. And what we found is, like in all the other business, when they've done it very local, they've had a much higher reaction rate that then resulted into sales than just doing like a big generic one.
That's very interesting because London is an international, or has a lot of tourists visit. So you would think that global influencers would be more.
But I think because the client who shops in London will also shop in Paris, who will also shop in New York, who will also shop in Singapore, who will also shop around the world. That's the sort of caliber of clients that sometimes you're dealing with. They're a world client, they're an international client. Right. They'll go everywhere, so they're aware of how the different marketing. But then something, especially let's say after COVID, it's become a lot more centralized. It's become a more like local. It's all about the local client, the people who live there, who actually have like addresses, who actually stay in the UK for like most of the time. So then having like sort of those marketing campaigns tailored for those clients there.
This also makes sense because, well, the high-end products, the origin of the supplies is also Europe. So focusing on local influencers and just that local voice.
But you have to think that local voice, like word of mouth. Word of mouth spreads very quickly. I mean, social media does an amazing job. But I think, with social media, there's always the ifs and the buts. But with word of mouth, if I go and buy something amazing, and it's of good quality and I've had a great experience in a store and so on, I'll be like, Ilir, did you say you needed something? You have to go to this place.
Right.
And you have to ask for this person. And you know what? Try that jacket I tried on. Right. You're going to love it. You're going to be like, Albert, do you know what? I'm going to go try it this afternoon. I've got a couple of hours free. I'm going to actually go try this and going to see how it is. Right. Because, and that's...
Has a lot of impact.
That has a lot more impact. And brands, and this is what all brands want to tap into. It's the customer experience. And then with customer experience, it's, even though it's not part of the marketing tool, it's probably the best marketing tool, because when you have like a really good experience with a brand, you will talk about it to everyone, especially here in Kosovo. I've noticed once more thing goes well, the whole city knows, like, this went really well, this really good. You have to go to this place and have your coffee because they make the best coffee here. Or you have to go and buy your this here because they make the best here. Oh, you have to do it. Like, tell me that you're going to go and do it, and tell them that I have sent you.
Right.
And it is that. And it's so beautiful.
Right?
And it's amazing because when you think like, these big multinational companies, they have like, and they refer it back to word of mouth. So much so that all the stores have like a mystery shop. Something that in Kosovo needs to happen. Like they need, because
a mystery shopper.
Yeah, a mystery shopper that goes into a store and gives them a mark out of 10, let's say, like looking at different aspects, different things.
They do this in the US a lot.
Because I think, as I said to you, Kosovo has so much potential, but I think in terms of customer service, there's a lot of work to do.
All right.
There's a lot of work to do.
Room for improvement?
A lot of room for improvement.
Okay.
But I say this from a very critical, because you think I base my business literally on the really good customer service.
Right.
Whether it's good or bad, it's still like it has to be great customer service. There's always a solution. There is like no, maybe. No, there isn't. I don't have time for that. I do not come in and buy something of like a certain amount of luxury for you to tell me that, sorry, no, we don't have it. Well, show me an alternative.
Exactly.
Show me something, do something, work with me, tell me a story. I don't care. I've come here like to have fun, to enjoy, and that is what it is. Fashion is fun.
Yeah. Yes.
Marketing is a way that you communicate fashion to the bigger audience. And generally marketing campaigns are always fun. They always try to include you into a community.
I wanted to ask you about when you said that marketing sometimes runs out of ideas and they sit there and ask, what am I doing? Would that explain why there's fashion from the 80s making a comeback?
So when you have all these marketers like scratching their head, it's like, what's going to be the next big thing? What's going to be the next big moment for the brand? I think what they look at is which groups of people have we not like targeting before? Now, a great example is like China. China, they have like so many did not have the concept of like the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and then the 90s, because obviously for them like the 50s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, no, they were under communism. It was all like the same. It's whatever like the state gave to them. They just said, yeah, whatever. There was nothing. It was all gray, blue. That's it. As in Europe and in the rest of the world, we had these different decades. Each decade had like its own features and so on. So marketers, what tend to do, especially with brands, is depending on what they want to, they'll bring bits of these, decades back, and then they'll introduce them to the different markets. So for example, like you bring the 80s, you introduce a brand, and then you'll have like let's say your Chinese teenager who's aware of now, is a bit more aware, but it's still not 100% that there was all of this, all of these decades, and each decade was very different. I have a very great example. I had a member of staff.
Okay.
So during like a training meeting, we were talking about the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. For him, it was just a blank. They're like, what is this? I hear numbers, but what does it represent?
Right.
And this is something that for me, that was a bit of a shock to the system, because you're like, oh, wow, that means you understand that this is something that Madonna wore in the 80s, 90s. You understand that this is something, this actor wore in the 60s, but you just don't understand the concept that, each decade had a different representation even for fashion. And this is what marketers tend to tap into, these groups of people who, they could be like in Europe, there's like the Korean pop, for example,
Yes.
K-pop, and you're like, I still don't know anything about it, but I bet you, like, if I literally paid more attention, it's something I would probably like and enjoy about it. So, and this is what marketers play, this beautiful game of and I think it's more of an education more than anything. You will probably want to give yourself or spend something when you feel that you've earned something. You're spending something, but you're also not only buying the product, but you're also gaining some information, vital, and education. You're being educated in
There's
something.
value in that
There
purchase.
is value. And I think, and this is what's so beautiful about going, back to one of the previous questions, why is fashion so important? Because yes, it might be just a jacket, it might be just a dress, it might be just something, but the historical, the design aspect, everything that comes in together is an accumulation in that material piece that you're wearing. But there's so much, if you know about it, that you can actually learn from it. Like the tweed, for example, very simple, one of the questions, why is it called tweed? Because tweed is Scottish. There's a river called the River Tweed.
Okay.
And it's
That's
something,
where it originates from?
yeah, so tweed is from Scotland. So this is why tweed generally from the windmills and so on. So, and this is where it comes from. And it's amazing that it's what? I didn't know this, come on.
Right.
And it's a constant learning thing. So markets tend to, especially now, because everyone's, go with the social media, it's a learning platform.
Of course.
And then, when you think that you're actually gaining knowledge, you're actually more willing to go and buy something from that brand, because not only have you given them something, they've also given you something back. And, that giving you something back will get you to come back again and to sort of engage more with that brand.
That's actually one very important thing about social marketing, that you have to build something with each of your followers if you want success. You can't just be putting out photo shoots and pictures and designs and hope that they'll
they might hit something and they get them to start following you more and just be connected. But I think, and this is why it's changing, especially after COVID, everyone's become a lot more sensitive. And everyone's a lot more aware of what they want and what they don't want. And then I think even brands are changing. Brands are always very glossy magazines and so on. Actually, do you know what? Let's do something a little bit more low-key. Let's get everyone involved. And one of the beautiful things, even down to the models that they use, for these campaigns. You have some brands now, instead of using the ideal model, what we conceive as beauty, they've twisted that, and then what we probably previously have not considered as beautiful, but as different.
Right.
Now, different has now become very beautiful. So instead of you using somebody who's got perfect teeth, let's say, you're using somebody who's got something, quite different.
Right.
Is there a gap in the middle?
Yes.
Are the other teeth a little bit more prominent than the other? That's still beautiful. That person is still beautiful in their own right.
It's different.
And because it's different, because it changes the way you sort of see things, your window into how you want to sort of connotate something. Then you're actually, this person is very beautiful. Do you know why she's beautiful? Because she's different.
Right. It's a different kind of beautiful.
And difference attention to detail, and all of that links into like a luxury product.
Right. Since we're talking about social media and the way they're utilizing the internet, have you had any experience with how the internet affected brick and mortar stores or stores that you manage, where you expect foot traffic, you expect people to actually come in? Has that had an impact on your end?
I think, look, bricks and mortar are going to be very important anyway. Like we've seen, I remember like working for matchesfashion.com. It was a great opportunity to sort of see how e-commerce and a bricks and mortar store actually could work very well together. But what you find is with that is it's a bit of a cycle. You'll have moments where everyone's rushing around trying to buy things and they'll just buy everything, and then because they bought everything online, they'll return everything because everything they bought hasn't been amazing. But they're happy with the efficiency of it, which is great.
Right.
But then how do you tie that into a bricks and mortar? In the bricks and mortar, this is where you find people such as myself, my team, who are there to actually give you that advice, who can actually tell you, look, go for this, don't go for that. Order this, don't order that. Or let's order all of this and bring it all here and we'll try it in together. There was an increase where everyone just went online. I think Burberry, like 10 years ago, they were probably like the very first people to do omni-channel to the best of their ability, because they did like such big investment on the omni-channel, the experience through the online and so on. But now that's sort of come back to the stores. People want to go out and experience the brand. And it's finding that balance where you can come into the store. Maybe we don't have something. I can order it online for you and I can make sure that it comes within, by the next day or the day after. And again, you come into the store because you want to know my advice.
Yes, there's people who can tell you
Yes. And look, there's also this thing there, like I know like Matches Fashion had this thing called My Stylist. And My Stylist was a person who was online. So if you went on onto the matchesfashion.com website, you would click on a few things, but then you needed some, advice on something. You had the little person that showed up and like, hey, how can I help you? You'd be like, hey, does this fit big? How does it fit? I need to wear it with this. And there will be people like sat at head office, like a group of 20 of them, who will actually advise you, because they are literally sales associates who are like so aware of everything about the brands and how everything works that they could actually give you that advice, there and there, live.
Yeah.
And that's good because sometimes you need that when you're at home. But again, that sort of takes you away from the store environment. And because now we become more about like going out and experiencing things, people are more willing now to come into the store, experience it, try it on, learn about the product, learn about the story about the product. And then maybe if they don't buy it there and then, they'll buy it literally. There's going to be that delayed purchase, which will happen like a day or two after. But that's still very good for brands, because that means that you're giving the client that experience to entice them back.
Yes.
You're giving them the efficiency of them having the product at home, and it comes very beautifully wrapped. So it's all an experience.
Right.
And I think now e-commerce and the bricks and mortar stores tend to work a lot better together. At the beginning, it was very just like everyone e-commerce, and then the stores were like a little bit redundant.
Right.
But then, because obviously things have changed through COVID and so many things, everyone wants to be part of an experience and be more involved in a brand.
How do pop-up shops tie into all this? What's their use? I read about this and I'm very interested.
Pop-up shops are a phenomenon.
Okay.
Pop-up shops are a phenomenon. It's probably like one of the greatest like marketing tools that you can sort of go out, create a capsule collection, and you go out and you want to outreach, a new audience. And the best thing is to do, obviously, you're not going to invest, hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds in a store, in everything.
These are small projects.
Small projects. The project I worked for, each project, we had a budget of 45,000 euros.
Okay.
A proper store would probably take 1 million. You probably need a budget of 1 million euros. As these stores would take 45,000, 40,000, depending on the location, where you just take the store and you take it to another location. Once it does well there, and then sometimes where it does really, really well, you keep it there.
Really?
You extend the lease.
There's cases where pop-up stores actually stayed?
Yeah, they stay, like they say, obviously you might sign a lease for 3 months or 6 weeks. But then because it's doing so well and you can do it, you can actually extend that lease for maybe another 2 or 3 months, or until you've got stock to sell. Once you sort of sell, then you close up shop and that is it.
So they're made only for certain products or capsules, as you call them?
Yeah, sort of capsules, but also like
You wouldn't restock them with another product if that...
I mean, you could do it, but brands tend to do it like the pop-up shop is more like for like those exclusive.
It's like a custom store, basically.
Like a custom store, but more of like something more exclusive from the brand. You know, the brand's offering this as an exclusive, so it's like a whole new concept. It's a different, you know, I think sometimes within those themes that I said, within like those fashion collections, you also find that maybe they'll pick that one theme that they, you know, the markets think, okay, this one is really going to boost our audience. You know,
So, yes, talking about audiences here, because you said at the beginning that their objective is to develop a new audience. Do they ever target existing, or is that not...
Existing clients are always targeted. This is why we always have to keep like the brands always have to keep the existing client. You know, after your first purchase, you become an existing client. But I always have to keep you enticed into the brand. So obviously, I have to keep you informed about all the newness, all the new things. But more than anything, this is why pop-ups are quite important. Because sometimes like you come into my store, maybe let's say like 3 times a month. It's nice that if we have a pop-up, I can be like, hey, Ilir, we've got like this great new product, you know, launch, this new capsule collection. I want to take you to the pop-up.
Oh.
And you're like, oh, you want to take me to a pop-up? This is amazing. Oh my God, yeah, of course. Let's organize. How are we going to do this? You know, and then in that whole thing, the way, you know, like the previous brand, one of the brands I worked for, they did like a pop-up in the arty area of London in Shoreditch. And that was sort of taking like a very luxurious high-end product into an area where you have like the smaller brands. And it did really well because obviously then attracted like a whole new audience. But then the existing audience were invited into a very different environment, and that gave them a different edge, different experience to the brand, which kept them even more active as a client than letting them, sort of drop off and go off to another brand. So no, this is why pop-ups for me like are so important. I think brands after a certain amount of time should like invest in pop-up, and a pop-up strategy. Just to sometimes, brands sometimes can go through like a cycle where they sort of slow down. And the only way they can actually ramp up that, that energy is by having a pop-up of like a particular type of brand and just moving it around, the area, whether it's going to be around the country, around a particular city. That's the only way you're going to engage everyone back into the brand, because then people start talking about it.
Right. So this next question might be uncomfortable. It's about fast fashion and its effects. How do you think fast fashion, with the likes of all these Chinese brands and just basically cheap clothes that follow trends, and they're much quicker to come to market? What do you think?
So, I mean, if I'm going to have to, if I have to go out shopping, on a personal note, I'd rather go vintage.
Okay.
Than fast fashion, because I think, vintage is something that's already been produced and there's so much out there that you can actually really, and you can find some great stuff and much better made than, some of the fast fashion. What you have to realize, fast fashion is a bit of a knockoff of, the latest collections, from the really big brands. As soon as a collection is about to air, everyone will log on, and sort of have a look at it. As these looks are coming out, there will be somebody there sketching. There will already be somebody making the pattern for something. There will already be somebody like looking at the type of embroidery, the buttons, and really analyzing everything. And that's, for me, that's a little bit sad, because it's sad because there is so much creativity that could happen, and you could create some great product even at a lower cost. But when you have like a knockoff of like some really great stuff, I think, it's like, yes, the argument is, as we mentioned before, yes, but it's an access to that great, amazing stuff.
Right.
It's access to the to the luxury market. Once you have a bit more funds to finance that. But I think it's when you sort of consider the social and economical aspect of it. Like the social is like that T-shirt or that whatever piece that you bought, which is fast fashion, would be very relevant this month. Next month it will be forgotten. You have taken that picture, you have posted it on Instagram, you've gone to that party, people have seen you wear it, you're not going to wear it again.
Right.
And that's a very wrong way of looking at fashion and clothing.
As well as not being environmentally friendly.
Then it won't be environmentally friendly, because most of it, in order for you to sort of use organic and really good quality fabrics, you have to spend a little bit more. Usually it's the fabrics that are used are plastic based, literally, or nylons. And obviously those don't exactly decompose very quickly within, within natural environment. But not even that, even getting to producing those, then, that quantity of fabric, that quantity of material, that's very damaging, because the amount of toxins that go into, like, even just denim, making denim, the metals, the washes and everything, you're using a lot of energy, a lot of water, which then most times, in some cases, that water is not like refiltered and recleaned and then re-released into the environment. It's just released into the environment. Now, whatever happens, then there's nobody there to sort of take that responsibility for. As with luxury fashion, people are like, yes, it's expensive, but it's expensive because you're buying into a quality, not only a quality of the product, but a quality of the way it's been made, the craftsmanship. That craftsperson has a family. That family needs to be supported.
Yeah, it's the supply chain as well as the
It's everything that needs to happen. So for me, like, fast fashion just needs to, I think, clear up its act. I think, like, everyone needs to be re-educated into buying less quality and not worry about being seen once or twice, like, with the same dress. The beautiful thing is everyone is a stylist.
Of course.
You can style a black dress in so many different ways. You can style anything in so many different ways. You're just knowing about buying the right pieces. Bringing it back to the relevance in Kosovo. It's great because I sort of seen, obviously, as mentioned before, with all these vintage stores, secondhand stores happening, everyone's mixing and matching, and they'd rather go buy this, this secondhand product than actually going to buy off, a cheaper, newer version, something that is just off the rack, mass-produced fast fashion. Right. And I think this is what I find very interesting, how advanced that is here in Kosovo compared to some other, like, European countries.
The styling part? The styling your own...
Not even styling, but the fact that there's more value in something that is secondhand, that's gone, it's like going to an archive and you take something from an archive and you're wearing it, than to buy something new which is being, like, produced.
Like a lame copy of the...
Yeah, a lame copy of like an original. And I think and this is so good because I think, like, even though, like, there's so much so much growth and development to happen, it's already happening. Right. And I think that's very interesting because, I sort of see it. I see some of the clients that come into our store. It's like, no. I want this. I don't want this new stuff that you can buy in all the markets or some of the malls here. No, I only buy vintage. And my question is, but why? It's like, because this is an original.
Right.
Yeah, it might be like, let's say, like a Tommy Hilfiger from like 20 years ago, but somehow it's found itself to come to Kosovo.
Yeah.
They look at the denim jacket, they're like, actually, this is like a really good denim jacket. I'd rather buy this than a no brand knockoff of a Balenciaga, let's say.
Right.
So it is great that there is that understanding of at that level, right now.
Yeah. So we always have these parts where we ask for advice for the young people, considering your career in fashion. Would you say that Kosovo as a country, it has a spark for fashion? Does it?
Kosovo has, I would say, a supernova of talent, which, and it has a spark for fashion. I think, the fact that we're becoming, as a society, it's becoming a much bigger society. It's becoming a much more growth mindset society. So some of the old prejudices are, like, diminishing, and you're starting to see, like, a very different way of understanding the world and, what, everyone wants the world to be. And I think, there is that spark because that's sort of grown into the confidence that's been in, that's put into, like, the youngster, especially, like, everyone who's going through, like, arts, art degrees, fashion degrees, architecture degrees, graphic degrees, and so on. They're given a confidence that, actually, by doing this, you actually could actually do so much more. My advice is to anyone, any young person, is take a risk. No design is going to be bad. No design is good or bad. No design is either. You have to go. If you believe in something, you have to go with it. Don't worry about what everyone else says. Don't worry about what, anything that you design, 50% are going to like it, 50% are not going to like it. There's always going to be somebody who's going to say something. Don't listen to them. Take it as constructive criticism, but don't let them knock you down.
Exactly. Don't let that stop you.
Don't let that stop you. That should never let you. So actually, the more criticism you get, you have to sort of take that as not as a personal hit at you for not being a competent designer, or a competent marketer, or a competent sales associate, or a competent whatever. You have to take that into your stride and be like, okay, how can I improve from what he said to me or what she said to me?
Right.
You know, how can I turn that into a positive for me?
That's gonna be a little harder for people, especially since they're not used to being critiqued.
But coming from also from this culture, 50% of me is from the Kosovan culture. You get criticized about everything, you know, from the way you drink your coffee, from the way you look, the way you tie your laces, the way, you know, yoka mrana, yoka yash. I'm like, come on, like, guys, leave me alone. But it's one of those things that how you sort of like train yourself to sort of take that criticism. If you take it wholeheartedly, you're never going to do anything with your life.
Exactly.
You know, and then what you're going to find yourself 20 years down the line, you'll be like, only I wish I had, you know, known more. And sometimes it's very difficult, especially when you're young. There's so much happening. There's so many changes. You know, my advice is be curious. Ask those questions, especially to your teachers, especially to your professors, especially like to like find a mentor. My advice is find somebody in the field that you want to be in, whether it's fashion, and ask them those questions. How is a collection put together? You know, asking someone like yourself, for example, how do you go around doing a marketing campaign, you know, for this particular thing? You know, what should I be looking for? How should I do it? And it's about not having, you know, having the confidence to ask those questions. So for me, it's not to fear.
Okay.
Take a risk. Be confident. And you know what? The world is your oyster. I mean, it's so much easier that said, you know, but you just have to take that risk. My father has always said you have to just take a risk. Risk is 50-50 with anything, even with collections. You might design a great collection, but it might not be there. You might get it made the best cashmere, the best whatever, the best, you name it. It might not work. It happens in life, but you learn from it.
Right.
You know, and it's about taking criticism more than anything. I think, you know, especially like within Kosovan society, the Kosovan mentality, criticism is always seen as negative. You know, oh, I'm criticizing because this is not good. Actually, no, stop. Don't think like that. And the first couple of times you're going to take it personally. I mean, I sometimes take things personally. But then you have to stop.
We're only humans, right?
We're all humans. But then you have to really start, especially if you want to be a creative. You know, like creativeness comes from the unknown, comes from taking, you know, like breaking in those boundaries. You know, and if you don't sort of break those boundaries, and if you do not ask those questions, if you're not curious, you're not going to create anything which is going to be wow, is going to like, you know, interest me or interest yourself. You know, and it's just being curious. I always say curiosity leads to so many things. With any of the biggest inventions, with any of the biggest, you know, scientific researches and developments, somebody had to be curious. But why can't I do this way?
Right.
You know, oh, okay, I shouldn't do it this way, but why?
Exactly. Keep questioning, right?
Keep questioning until you come to the answer. Mm-hmm. And then if you find yourself that everyone's against you, that probably means you're onto something pretty good.
Okay.
And I mean, so I'm responsible for a team of 40. So when you have like a team of 40, you know, you have different characters, different things you have to learn how to like, you get the best out of them. But then you also, like, I look at the people above me. Obviously, I have to give like feedback and so on to the people above me. There's a way that you feedback and so on. And some of it is very critical because obviously in my role, I want to make sure that the marketing campaign brings enough clients through my doors. And then through great customer experience, we actually make the budgets and the monies that we have to sort of do as a business. But then what you have to always saying is like, you have to say, how do I turn that into a positive? You know, whatever criticism it is. I get criticism from like the top down.
Yes.
But then it's like, okay, how do I then just go home and cry and then never come out? No, I just like, okay, this is great criticism. How can I do to sort of better that criticism? And how can I turn it into a positive for me and for my team? But it's a coaching. I mean, this is like, we go from marketing to coaching here, but you have to coach yourself. Constantly. And I think in Kosovan, like I think in the Kosovan tradition, because you're so used to being criticized for so many things, sometimes you just ignore the criticism.
So it becomes white noise.
So it just becomes white noise. And something's very important. This is why I said it's very important to go to somebody who's like a specialist in the field or a specialist in what you want to do and ask them those questions. You know, what do you think of my design? You know, what does my design make you feel? That would be the better question.
Right.
You know? And then from that, then you get an understanding like, how can I make this? I want this to sort of make me feel... You know, I want this to sort of represent this. How could I make this represent this? You know, how could it reach a particular audience? You know, and this is where, you know, you have your marketers like, oh, well, actually, let's tell this story. Let's tell that story. But unless you're curious, you're never going to understand that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, be curious, and be a risk taker.
Good things will come.
Good things will come, but you have to work for it.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as just being insta famous or like a hit on TikTok. You actually do have to work. I know 2 or 3 like influencers, I know 2 or 3 TikTokers, they work 24 hours.
Wow.
And because obviously, people want content needs to be made. In order for you to make great content, you have to put in a lot of time and effort into it.
Right.
But even these guys, they are curious, they take risks. Because they are curious to take risks, they actually see results at the end.
Great. Well, on that note, I think we've had a great talk here.
It was absolutely amazing.
We could go on for days here. There's so much to cover.
It's so much big. Going back to how important is fashion to to society, anything. It's actually very, very important because there's so many different aspects to it. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on Marketingaholic.
Thank you very much for coming, and wish you all the best then.
Great. Now let's go shopping.
All right. For everyone out there, Marketingaholic podcast is available on our website, marketingaholic.zone, as well as all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and wherever. So thank you for watching and enjoy.